it will take time to bring inflation back down to normal, but the American people showed that they still have confidence that the president's economic plan is indeed working.
That was White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday touting the economy despite Americans facing 40-year high inflation. At least 20 states offered a one-time stimulus rebate to offset the pain of higher prices. Joining me right now is Texas Congressman, House Ways and Means Committee ranking member Kevin Brady. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here. How do you react to what you're hearing from the White House in terms of the economy? And why more stimulus checks when, in fact, that's how we got to 40-year high inflation?
Yeah, that's exactly. Look, no one outside the White House has any confidence in the president on the economy. Every survey, every poll shows it. This is such a cruel economy for so many Americans. You know, they're going into debt faster than they have in 15 years. They're digging into savings. They're skipping meals, delaying retirement, worried about their rent payment and prices going forward. So for many Americans, this is incredibly cruel. But I think, too, just look at the economy and projections. The economy is weaker than projected even last spring. Prices are higher than projected. Wages are lower than projected. And I think today, when we see the inflation numbers, you know, this worries me about the Fed, but anything above 0.3 this past month means inflation is resurging, increasing each of the last 3 months, which is exactly the wrong direction, frankly, and another reason why the Fed should not go wobbly.
David.
Congressman, you know, it's a two-edged sword here. You know, obviously the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell, they're trying to drain liquidity from the system. The administration is pouring it back in. How do we get around that? And in the end, everything comes back to Washington to solve this problem.
Yeah, so look, you know, the Fed's trying to deal with President Biden's induced inflation and looming recession, but Congress doesn't have to just stand by. Rather than what President Biden has pursued, which is growth in spending, taxes, and regulation that fuel inflation, you're going to see House Republicans focusing on less of that, but more American-made energy, more workers connected to the workforce, and more innovation, more investment in the supply chain. And I know even though companies are laying off a number of workers, there's still a labor shortage in many states. In Texas, we got 1 million job openings this morning. That drives inflation longer and higher as well.
Well, what about this rail strike? I mean, this deal is giving the rail workers a 24% raise. Is that inflationary?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. We had this debate yesterday as Congress intervened in all of that, which a problem Joe Biden, frankly, broke and should be responsible for fixing. But bottom line is, yeah, those numbers are high. They're going to be reflected immediately in the cargo, and in other unions and other organizations are going to seek equally high wages. So we are in, as you know, a wage price spiral already. I think it's going to get worse because of the rail and union numbers.
So New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries has been elected to lead House Democrats for the incoming Congress. Republicans going after him for repeatedly denying the legitimacy of the 2016 election, Congressman. Why is it that it's just the Republicans who are election deniers, according to the media, when in fact we know Jeffries has been questioning the legitimacy of the 2016 election ever since Election Day?
Yeah, he did, and many Democrats do, but as you know, the mainstream media ignores all that, including Joe Biden's own claims that President Trump is illegitimate, Secretary Clinton's former president, Jimmy Carter as well, and a number of people, Democrats in Congress. So, look, I think this is more the same in the Democrat Party up here. And I'll remind people, too, in 2018, you know, all these Democrats in the House voted to default on the debt, not pay our bills, crash the economy, just as they always accuse Republicans of, really ignore some of their own actions as well.
Your former colleague and our current colleague, Jason Chaffetz, says Hakeem Jeffries is a really nice guy, but adds, boy, if you want to know the direction of the Democratic Party, take a look at Hakeem Jeffries' record and who he is siding with. He is all about the squad. He is all about the progressive caucus. That on top of the fact that, quote unquote, moderate Joe Biden has gone so far left during his first 2 years in office. Is there any way that the current Democratic Party gives you folks in Congress any room to work with, or are they just so far left that it's basically you have your conservatives, you have your middle, and then you have this ridiculously far left Democratic Party?
Yeah, so this is a new leadership for House Democrats. It does reflect this conference that has gone so far left in their agenda and in their thinking. So, look, this new leadership, and by the way, these are people with very strong personal skills, who you hope you can work together with. Because of what we hope is their character and their desire for a better country. But we'll see. House Republicans are going to reach out on issues, especially on inflation and border security, issues like that. We'll see if they respond.
Yeah, I want to ask you about border security in a second, but let me just get your take on this rail deal. Do you expect it to pass the Senate?
Yeah, I do, and I think the threat, of what happens to the economy if it fails is probably driving so many of these votes. And these are regional issues, obviously manufacturing, farming, consumers, energy, big impacts locally. So that is a tough vote. I mean, honestly, with people, my worry was, again, this will be inflationary, and I don't want Congress intervening in these negotiations. They've had 3 years to fix this problem, and I think they ought to be the ones to do that.
Well, it certainly takes away any rights that the unions actually have to strike and get, leverage. But I want to switch gears and ask you about the border, because yesterday Fox News' Peter Doocy pressed the White House yesterday on the invitation from GOP leader Kevin McCarthy for President Biden to visit the southern border. Listen to this.
We know the president's never been down to the border. The possible next speaker says that he wants him to go with him. So is he going to?
So look, he's been there. He's been to the border. And since he took office.
When did he go to the border?
Since he took office, the President Biden has been taking action to fix our immigration system and secure our border.
Now, we don't have any record of President Biden ever visiting the border. Do you?
No, never, ever. And I think the president and the White House press team really ought to be glad Elon Musk runs Twitter, because they would be risking having their account suspended for just disinformation. Frankly, it's nonsense. In Texas, we've been pleading, inviting, urging, pushing the president, instead of going around the world for climate conferences, come to your own border, see what you've wrought. It is a humanitarian crisis. It's a security crisis. It's a drug crisis, and they just refuse to acknowledge any of that. But I think that's going to change in our Republican House. Is one of the strongest priorities for us. For a nation that's safe, you have to address the southern border.
Yeah, but not before December 21st, when Title 42 goes away. And when Title 42 goes away, what are you expecting?
Yeah, you know these numbers, Maria. It's huge. They see a tripling of the crossings there at the border, as if we're not already overwhelmed there. Look, it is hard to describe in words how bad that situation is, and it's going to get worse.
All right, Congressman, we'll be watching all of that. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Good to see you. Thanks.
And to you, Kevin Brady, joining us.